Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This movie series is an action and drama. Let's get started. Yuzo was an exemplary student in his class. He was not only smart but also kind and polite, which earned him great respect from everyone. Yuzo's life was peaceful and orderly until a transfer student arrived. The teacher introduced the new student, Sok-chan, who was the national high school boxing champion. The whole class applauded, except for Yuzo. He froze suddenly, looking as if he had seen a ghost. Once the teacher left, Sok-chan immediately beat up a troublemaker in class, establishing his leadership through fear. After that, he approached Yuzo, stroked his cheek, and greeted him as if they were old acquaintances. The class leader tried to intervene, but Sok-chan didn't care. He even bullied the girls in the class. Yuzo carefully grabbed Sok-chan's arm and begged him to stop. But instead of calming down, Sok-chan grew even angrier. Furious, Sok-chan yelled at Yuzo, saying he had seemingly forgotten the lessons of the past. That was when everyone discovered that Sok-chan had bullied Yuzo back in high school. Whenever Yuzo had asked teachers for help back then, his torment would only get worse. And now the nightmare had returned. Yuzo lay on the floor groaning in pain. That was when he noticed a pen. Though trembling, he picked it up. Sok-chan laughed at him, called him a coward, and even grabbed Yuzo's hand, pointing the pen at his own eye, saying, "Go on, stab it." All of Yuzo's bottled-up fear and anger exploded. Overwhelmed by emotion, he suddenly stabbed Sok-chan's eye. The whole class was stunned. Sok-chan screamed in pain, clutching his right eye. Because Yuzo used a pen as a weapon and blinded Sok-chan in one eye, it was not ruled as self-defense. Yuzo's mother wept, helpless. She never imagined that the first time her son stood up for himself would ruin his bright future. On the journey to prison, no one wanted to sit next to the scary-looking man at the back of the bus. Because a gold-haired guy stole his seat, Yuzo was forced to sit next to that terrifying man. When they arrived, the guards confiscated all their belongings. The man, whose name was Hanman, approached Yuzo again and quietly asked why he was locked up. Yuzo replied softly, "Attempted murder." Everyone was shocked. Hanman immediately apologized and remarked that they had the same charge. However, when they later introduced themselves to the other inmates, Hanman confessed that he was actually just a simple thief. A veteran inmate explained the prison rules to them. Here, hierarchy was based on strength. Fists determined one's rank. So if you didn't know how to fight, it was best to keep your head down and stay unnoticed. 3 groups ruled the prison. First was Sang, a former world judo champion who was undefeated in fights. Second was Wan Jun, a large muscular man who went wild when angered. Third was a grumpy man, Sung, who could take down anyone. Wan Jun and Sung allied to seize power. They staged a fake fight and blamed Sang-hyup for hurting them and stealing their cigarettes. Consequently, Sang-hyup was placed in solitary confinement, leaving power in their hands. But even though they were the leaders, there was one man whom everyone respected even more: Do-hoon, the man sitting next to Yuzo on the bus. He was the youngest world MMA champion, dubbed superhuman by foreign media. One day, Do-hoon went home carrying flowers and gifts for his sister's birthday. But when he opened the refrigerator, it was filled with blood. Panicked, he searched the house and found his sister lying in a pool of blood. Suddenly, someone attacked him from behind. The culprit had no idea how strong Do-hoon was. Do-hoon instantly broke the man's leg. Upon seeing his dead mother, his rage erupted. He brutally beat another thief until the man lost consciousness. Another criminal tried to attack, but Do-hoon quickly took him down as well. In the end, he killed the three thieves and was imprisoned for excessive self-defense. Inside the prison, Yuzo lived in fear of how he would survive. One day, one of the soccer players was injured, so Yuzo was sent in as a replacement. On his very first kick, he hit Wanjun in the groin. The inmates laughed, but one of them warned Yuzo that he had just invited major trouble. A few men dragged Yuzo to a corner to beat him. The painful memories of being bullied rushed back to him. In that desperate moment, Do-hoon walked by, and Yuzo immediately cried out for help. Wanjun was somewhat intimidated by Do-hoon, but he still warned him not to interfere. Do-hoon hesitated but ultimately helped Yuzo. Furious at his intervention, Wanjun humiliated Do-hoon, calling him a murderer, pretending to be good, and rushed him. However, Do-hoon swiftly evaded every punch and ended the fight with a single powerful blow. From then on, Yuzo deeply admired him, but because of this, Wanjun added Yuzo to his revenge list. While Yuzo searched for a way to survive, Sok-chan came to visit. He was now blind in his right eye, and his boxing career was completely over. Furious, Sok-chan told Yuzo that he was waiting for him to get out, and that it would be the beginning of his hell. Yuzo was paralyzed with fear. Crying, he begged Sok-chan to forgive him, but Sok-chan coldly replied that he could never forgive him and walked away. From that day on, Yuzo's life was consumed by fear. By day, Wanjun threatened him. By night, Sok-chan's face haunted his nightmares. One day Yuzo saw Do-hoon training. He gathered his courage and began bringing him milk every day. At first, Do-hoon thought Yuzo was just trying to curry favor to get protection, so he coldly rejected him. But Yuzo didn't back down. Finally, he bravely begged Do-hoon to teach him how to fight, not out of revenge, but because he wanted to be strong and live a normal life. Do-hoon asked him why he wanted to learn. Yuzo answered, "I'm tired of running. I've always run away from my problems. I hate myself for being weak. I want to change." Do-hoon fell silent. Ultimately, he agreed to train Yuzo on one condition. He had to run 100 laps in 40 minutes. The moment Yuzo heard the word start, he dashed forward. At first he was fast, but soon he ran out of breath. His legs throbbed with pain, and he was nearly blinded by exhaustion. Yet he did not stop. He knew this was his only chance to change his life. By the 81st lap, he was on the verge of fainting. He vomited, collapsed, and almost gave up. Do-hoon even told him that stopping was no disgrace, but Yuzo remembered his former cowardly self. Forcing himself up, he screamed like a wild animal and ran until he lost consciousness. Even though he didn't complete the trial, Do-hoon accepted him as his student. Thanks to Do-hoon's connection with the warden, Yuzo was moved to his cell, where he was immediately put through a physical fitness test. He couldn't even do a proper push-up, let alone a single pull-up. Do-hoon sighed but helped Yuzo until he managed his first pull-up. That marked the beginning of intense training. In the early days, Yuzo was still weak, collapsing after just a few push-ups. But day after day, he pushed his limits. He ate a lot to build strength. As time went on, his punches grew more powerful, and his muscles began to define. He even snapped a resistance band with his sheer strength. When the time was right, Do-hoon taught him combat techniques and how to take a punch. Gradually, the once weak and fearful Yuzo transformed into a strong, capable man who knew how to fight. All the inmates were amazed by his transformation. Meanwhile, outside the prison, Sok-chan was walking aimlessly down the street. A car behind him honked, and the passengers cursed, shouting, "Are you blind?" Those words pierced Sok-chan's heart. He marched over to the car, kicked off the side mirror, and beat up the two men. A gang leader named Woo Yong witnessed this. Impressed by Sok-chan's raw talent, Woo Yong wanted to recruit him. Sok-chan had no interest until Woo Yong noticed his blind right eye. Woo Yong promised he could get it treated and make him even stronger. Hearing this, Sok-chan slowly changed his mind. Back in prison, Yuzo was still training hard, maintaining a horse stance while studying. Haman wondered why he was so serious about exercising. Yuzo said he just wanted to get strong, but over time, he had grown to love the feeling of exhaustion and discipline. One day Hanman brought bad news. Do-hoon had passed the age of 23 and was being transferred to an adult prison. During their training, Do-hoon noticed Yuzo's lack of focus and scolded him. "Do your best while we are still together. We never know when our time will run out." Not long after, Yuzo saw Hanmin being bullied. He immediately stepped in to protect him. The bullies tried to lay a hand on Yuzo, but now that he was strong, he could fight back. When Wanjun found out his men had been hurt, he was furious. He summoned Yuzo to the workshop to settle old scores and new trouble. Yuzo apologized and explained that Wanjun's men had bullied Hanmin first, but Wanjun refused to listen and suddenly punched him in the head. Yuzo dodged a second punch and accidentally slapped Wanjun. Utterly humiliated and enraged, Wanjun slammed Yuzo to the floor. Yuzo stood back up, but his punches seemed to have no effect. Wanjun's body felt like steel, and each of his punches felt like a falling hammer. Yuzo collapsed, trembling and groaning in pain. But to everyone's shock, he stood up once more, his determination sky high. He rushed Wanjun, hammering his face with consecutive punches until Wanjun fell unconscious. Before Yuzo could be entirely consumed by rage, Do-hoon stopped him, fearing Yuzo might end up like him, a warrior lost in consuming anger. Meanwhile, on the outside, Sok-chan grew even more ruthless. Through countless fights and bloodshed, his heart grew cold, and he became Woo Yong's favorite hitman, executing orders without mercy. The next day, Do-hoon prepared a delicious lunch for Yuzo. After eating, they had their first real sparring match. Noticing that Yuzo was holding back, Do-hoon shouted, "Don't hold back! You must be fully committed!" Yuzo fought with all his might, but his fist stopped at the very last second. Angry, Do-hoon reminded him that if he hesitated for even a fraction of a second, that is when he would get hit. Nevertheless, Do-hoon was proud of how much Yuzo had changed and how strong he had become. Do-hoon announced that their training was complete. It was then Yuzo realized Do-hoon was transferring to the adult prison that very day. Before leaving, Do-hoon said, "Sharks don't have a swim bladder. If they stop swimming, they sink and die. I hope you never stop swimming." After Do-hoon left, Yuzo couldn't hold back his tears. The only thing he could do was train day and night to fill the void in his chest. As Do-hoon boarded the bus, he looked back at the prison one last time. At the same time, a former inmate who was now working for Sok-chan bragged to him, saying Yuzo had become incredibly strong. Sok-chan only offered a cold smile. The next day, Sok-chan visited the prison again and asked Yuzo if he was training to fight him. Yuzo didn't answer. Instead, he laughed at Sok-chan and said he hadn't changed at all. Sok-chan smirked and said he was looking forward to the day Yuzo was released. A few days later, Sang Hyup was released from solitary. Yuzo was also returned to his original cell. Sang Hyup looked at him and seriously asked if he wanted to replace him as the group leader. Yuzo calmly replied, Relax. I have no interest. Sang-hyup was surprised, having thought Yuzo was a fight addict. During prison cleanup, Sung-yong approached Yuzo and challenged him to a fight, saying, "If you win, I'll do whatever you want." Yuzo smiled and replied, "Just stop bullying people." Sung-yong agreed. The day of the fight arrived, but Yuzo was nowhere to be found. Sung-yong laughed and called him a coward. Seeing this, Sang-hyup spoke to everyone. "Fighting brings nothing good. It only brings pain and punishment. We shouldn't live like trash." Right after he spoke, Yuzo arrived. Sung-yong attacked immediately, fast and violent. Yuzo struggled at first but refused to give up. Just when Sung-yong thought he had won, Yuzo stood up again. He grabbed Sung-yong's leg, struck him in the thigh, and then locked him in a chokehold, ultimately defeating his opponent. From then on, Yuzo was recognized as the strongest in the prison. Under his leadership, the trouble and bullying stopped. The prison became peaceful and orderly, and even his former enemies became his friends. Sung-yong even taught him kicking techniques. Meanwhile, in the adult prison, Do-hoon began a new chapter of self-growth, though in his heart, no one could replace Yuzo, his first student. Due to his good behavior, Yuzo was released early. Before stepping outside, he visited the training yard one last time, remembering his days with Do-hoon. He left the prison with gratitude in his heart, but before he could even catch his breath, Sok-chan reappeared. He approached Yuzo and tried to humiliate him with tofu, an insult commonly aimed at ex-convicts. But Yuzo ignored him, finding his behavior childish. Without further delay, their final battle began. Sok-chan was a seasoned fighter, fast and brutal. He beat Yuzo like a punching bag, and as the fight dragged on, he became viler, even insulting Yuzo's mother and saying he begged like a dog. Blinded by rage, Yuzo retaliated with a heavy punch. Sok-chan came back even more violently, landing consecutive blows to Yuzo's head and stomach. Yuzo collapsed, coughing up blood. As he lay there, he remembered Do-hoon's words. "Sharks don't stop swimming." The fire inside him was rekindled. He stood up and fought back. They exchanged brutal blows without backing down. Using the technique Do-hoon taught him, Yuzo struck Sok-chan's brow. Sok-chan went wild, throwing ferocious punches, but Yuzo saw his opening. He used the kick Sung-yong had taught him. Sok-chan was stunned, unable to believe that the once weak and cowardly Yuzo had become this formidable. The fight turned into a battle of willpower, and Yuzo would not be defeated. In the end, Sok-chan collapsed. As Yuzo walked away, Sok-chan glared at him with a mix of rage and defeat. A few days later, Yuzo visited Do-hoon in prison. Both were thrilled to see each other again. Do-hoon quietly asked, "Have you seen a real shark?" Yuzo smiled. "I went to an aquarium. I thought they would move, but they weren't moving at all." Do-hoon laughed and replied, "Maybe that shark was dead." They shared a laugh, looking just like old friends again. 6 months later, life on the outside remained difficult for Yuzo. Because of his criminal record, he faced constant discrimination and struggled to find a decent job. But he was not alone. He was supported by his friends from prison. Sung-yong now ran a food truck. Won-jun worked in construction and studied at night. Sang-hyup was back at the gym working as a coach. Every day, Yuzo trained without rest. They all promised that even though society labeled them as ex-convicts, they would never give up. One day, Yuzo visited Do-hoon with good news. He had secured a part-time job at a gym, found a place to live, had food, and could still continue his training. The road to becoming a professional boxer was tough, but like a shark, he would never stop swimming. Still, Do-hoon worried. Even though Yuzo had defeated Sok-chan, he knew more trouble would follow. He repeatedly warned Yuzo to be careful and not to let anger consume him. Yuzo simply nodded in silence. Do-hoon said, "Just do your absolute best." At the gym, Yuzo worked harder than ever. While training, he saw a coach being beaten by an arrogant professional boxer named Al. Al asked who his punching bag would be for the day. The coach replied, "No one wants to fight you anymore. They think you want to kill someone." With that, the coach pointed at Yuzo. Al laughed and insulted Yuzo, saying, "They say you're an ex-con. Want to give it a shot?" Yuzo accepted the challenge. He quickly dodged the first punch. The coach handed him protective gear, but Yuzo only put on the gloves. Al laughed, looking down on him. Al rushed him quickly, but Yuzo focused entirely on defense, protecting his head. At the perfect moment, he struck Al's arm. Al shrieked in pain and dropped to his knees, begging for ice. The gym owner was furious because Al was supposed to fight in an illegal event called Fog, an underground boxing match exclusive to VIP guests. The fight was streamed live on a private app where wealthy people wagered massive amounts of money. Al was one of the headliners, and his opponent was a notorious fighter known as Tank. But with Al suddenly injured and out of commission, the organizers had to find a replacement, promising to pay 5 times the original prize. Regardless of the outcome, the viewers did not complain. Instead, they grew even more excited and raised their bets. The mysterious fighter finally stepped forward. It was the gang leader, Woo Yong. To make the fight fair, the rules were changed. If Tank could last 30 seconds, he would win. The crowd roared in excitement, with almost everyone betting on Woo Yong. Woo Yong entered a ring, stepped on Tank, and told him not to be afraid. He promised to pay off all of Tank's debts if Tank could land just a single punch. The fight began, but Tank stood no chance. With just one kick and a single punch, he was knocked unconscious like a baby. Even though only 10 seconds had passed, Woo Yong didn't stop. He went as far as breaking Tank's leg. On his way home, Yuzo ran into Wanjun. He saw Wanjun giving money to a man with a cane who looked visibly embarrassed. It turned out Wanjun had bullied that man in the past and was the reason he was crippled. But Wanjun had changed and was trying to make amends for his past wrongs. Yuzo greeted him, and Wanjun pretended nothing was out of the ordinary. They chatted, and Yuzo mentioned he had almost been kicked out of the gym. Wanjun sighed, noting how difficult life really is. But Yuzo said he chose this path, and no matter how hard it got, he wouldn't give up. Afterward, they went to Sung Yong's food truck. Wanjun often ate there for free, though Sung Yong pretended to complain. Even though they constantly teased and bickered with each other, their friendship was deeply valuable, especially during tough times. Ji-hoo, Wanjun's tutor, arrived. The 4 of them poured drinks and raised a toast to a better future. Sung Yong noticed that Ji-hoo kept looking at Yuzo, clearly harboring feelings for him. Suddenly, an expensive car sped up and stopped. The driver got out and walked straight toward Yuzo. It was Woo Yong. Cutting straight to the chase, he invited Yuzo to work for him. 3 hours prior, Woo Yong had ordered his men to find Al, who had suddenly vanished. When they arrived at a cruise ship, they found Al badly beaten, bruised, and kneeling. Ken explained that Al couldn't fight because of a fractured wrist. Woo Yong asked who had hurt him, and Al replied that it was a janitor named Yuzo. Surprised, Woo Yong immediately grew interested in Yuzo. He made Al choose whom to trust, his girlfriend or his manager. Al chose his manager because they were cousins. Woo Young said that if the manager could go 10 seconds without screaming, he would let Al go. But before he could even finish speaking, the manager screamed in terror. Without mercy, Woo Young threw all three of them into the ocean. Afterward, Ken reported that Yuzo was also the one who had blinded Sok-chan. Impressed by Yuzo's abilities, Woo Young rushed to recruit him, offering a large sum of money. But Yuzo immediately declined, saying, "I am not like Sok-chan." Shocked because no one had ever rejected him before, Woo Young decided to play dirty. The next day, Ji-hoo was talking on the phone when she noticed a pregnant woman struggling. She immediately hung up and went over to help. But as she was putting the bags in the car, the woman pulled out a cigarette and asked if she was Ji-hoo. Before Ji-hoo could react, a man grabbed her and forced her into a mental hospital ambulance. Miss Park got in, removing her fake belly, while Ji-hoo looked for an opportunity to escape. She hit the man with an oxygen tank and tried to open the door, but it was locked. Miss Park kicked her, knocking her unconscious. At the same time, Yuzo was training with Sang Hyup, while Wonjun and Sung Yong watched. They sounded like an old married couple bickering about their kids. Wonjun got annoyed when Sung Yong suddenly started acting overly affectionate. After the training session, Yuzo received a video call from Ji-hoo. He saw her crying, seemingly being held back. He called her back, but there was no answer. Realizing Woo Young was behind this, Yuzo seethed with anger, wanting revenge. Wonjun stopped him, advising him to hold back because Woo Young wanted nothing more than to make him lose control. Sang Hyup called the police, but they couldn't do anything because the situation was unclear. Moments later, Yuzo received a message with an address to a construction site. The four of them immediately drove there in their old truck. When they arrived, they split up to search but found nothing. Until Yu noticed something, a keychain on the ground. He called Ji-hoo and heard her ringtone coming from inside an old building. He ran inside without a second thought. Inside, there were two men tying up Ji-hoo. They were approaching to hurt her, but Yu and Wonjun arrived. With just 2 punches from Yu, the opponents immediately collapsed. He helped free Ji-hoo, but she told him they needed to run. The cell phone rang again. Suddenly, even more enemies appeared from all directions. It turned out Miss Park had used Ji-hoo's phone as a trap for Yu. Outnumbered, they stood no chance. Their eyes were covered, and they were forced into a van. Sung Yong and Sang Hyup saw the van and immediately followed it. Inside the vehicle, Yu lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was tied to a chair. He asked Woo Young where his friends were. Woo Young did not answer. Instead, he told a story about how child soldiers are trained in Africa. Blindfolded, given a gun, and made to shoot in front of them. After removing the blindfold, they would see that they had killed someone. Because of the trauma, they learned to obey orders. Afterward, Woo Young made Yu choose who would die, Wonjun or Ji-hoo. Yu begged him not to involve them, but Woo Young had lost interest and ordered Miss Park to take care of it. Before leaving, he said that if Yu did not choose, both of them would die. Miss Park was crazy. She loved dirty work. She even ordered her men to record everything. She gave Yu 10 seconds to choose. Yu screamed that he would kill her, but nothing happened. He burst into tears and asked Wonjun what to do. After the countdown, Miss Park heard Wonjun's name, so she stabbed him. But fortunately, the knife only hit the rope, allowing Wonjun to break free. He immediately grabbed Miss Park's arm and threw her. He knocked down the two useless guards. Miss Park charged again, but Won Jun caught the knife and slammed her down hard. He freed the others, and they all ran downstairs together. When Miss Park woke up, she ordered hundreds of guards to attack. Won Jun stayed behind to hold them off, while Yu and Ji-hoo ran outside. But more enemies arrived in front of them. Yu fought hard, but slipped and fell down the stairs. Won Jun came to help, but was pushed against the wall by a guard. Yu lost his strength. Ji-hoo hit the guard with a fire extinguisher, giving Yu a chance to strike back. Before they could catch their breath, more enemies arrived. Even though Won Jun was already covered in blood, he still blocked them so his friends could escape. Yu and Ji-hoo reached the parking lot, but bodyguards blocked their way. At the last second, Sung-yong and Sang-hyup arrived. They fought the opponents with all their might. In just a few seconds, everyone was down. They rushed back to look for Won Jun, but they saw that he had already defeated all the henchmen by himself. He even joked that his friends were late. Yu helped him stand up and told him not to lose hope. Before new guards could arrive, they all escaped. Unfortunately, Won Jun was in critical condition. He pulled out a notebook containing a list of the people he had bullied in the past. He begged Yu to apologize to them on his behalf, but Yu refused, saying, Won Jun himself must do that once he recovers. But Won Jun couldn't hold on. Before he finally passed away, he said he would not die as trash. But he didn't make it. Yu screamed in pain and anger. All their memories flashed through his mind. He blamed himself for what happened. At the funeral, Yu stared at Won Jun's portrait in grief. Suddenly, a woman slapped him. It was Yoon-ji, Won Jun's sister. Furious, she asked where he was when her brother died. Yu could do nothing but repeatedly apologize. But Yoon-ji didn't want his apologies. She just wanted her brother alive. Yu could no longer forgive himself. He deeply regretted rejecting Woo-young's offer back then. Yoon-ji shouted that if it weren't for him, Won Jun wouldn't have died. Suddenly, Sung-yong erupted in anger and said what happened was not Yu's fault. Because of Yu, it was the first time Won Jun felt like a real human being, despite his past dirty life. With Yu's help, he passed the high school equivalency test and apologized to the people he had hurt. Sung-yong told Yu to stop blaming himself because if he continued to punish himself, Won Jun's soul would never find peace. Hearing this, Yoon-ji understood how deep the bond was between Yu and her brother. Meanwhile, Ji-hoo was talking to her mother on the phone. Suddenly, a man with a scar on his face bumped into her. Growing suspicious, she hung up and followed him. She saw the scarred man meeting with the police officer handling Won Jun's case. She forced herself close enough to hear the officer answering a call from Ken. On the phone, Ken offered the officer a massive bribe to switch the suspect and frame someone else. Ji-hoo saw this and immediately informed her companions. The situation grew even worse when Woo-young sent a flower wreath to Won Jun's wake. The card read, "Let's finish our unfinished business." Furious, Sung-yong destroyed it. He cursed repeatedly, saying the police were useless. Sang-hyup calmed him down, admitting he also wanted to kill Woo-young, but he said nothing would be resolved with just anger. While everyone was arguing, Yu quietly read Won Jun's notebook. On the very last page, the victim's name written was his own. Only then did he understand that what Won Jun wanted to say before he died was, "Forgive me." Yu clutched the notebook tightly and made a decision. The people who killed Won Jun must pay. but this time they would plan carefully. To their surprise, Yoonji said she wanted to join them. To prove herself, she quickly defeated 3 men in an instant. Another strong member was added to the revenge group. They all looked at Won Jun's portrait with determined faces. No matter what storm came their way, they would not back down. The first step was to find evidence. Ji-hoo remembered Woo Yong once telling Miss Park that he had a video of the entire incident, but it was hard to find where it was hidden. Suddenly, Yu had an idea. Yoonji dressed up as a delivery rider and went to Woo Yong's headquarters carrying a package. There were hidden cameras inside it. Because security was tight, Yu had stuck Woo Yong's old business card onto the package. The guards assumed it came from Woo Yong's office, so they took it straight to the streaming room. Through the camera feed, the group began mapping the inside of the building. Once they confirmed the target, they immediately moved. Sung Yong sped the vehicle and drove straight into the underground parking. The guards spotted the suspicious van on the CCTV and immediately went out to check. But when they got there, the van was empty. Suddenly, they heard a strange sound, and the microwave inside the van exploded. The fire alarm went off, and chaos ensued. While the guards were distracted, the group entered the building. A fierce battle quickly broke out. Even though they were outnumbered, they did not waver. They split into 2 groups, one to defend and the other to strike. They needed to win quickly. After taking down all the opponents, Yu went to the broadcast room to find the evidence while the others stayed in the lobby to block incoming reinforcements. When Yu found the computer, he threatened the technician and made him open the files, but the folder for that day had already been deleted. Meanwhile, Woo Yong watched everything on the monitor. He was amazed by Yu's skills. When Yu returned to the lobby, Woo Yong played the video of what happened on the day of Won Jun's death. Yu's screams echoed throughout the building. When they saw Miss Park stabbing Won Jun, everyone burned with rage. Ken arrived with reinforcements. Woo Yong turned on the speaker and told Yu, "If you want the video, come and get it." Without hesitation, Yu walked through the enemies toward the elevator. Ken ordered his men to clear the parking area. Ken, Miss Park, and Scar remained to fight the group. When Yoonji found out that Miss Park was the one who stabbed her brother, she immediately went to exact her revenge. Sang-hyup fought Ken while Sung-yong faced Scar. In the elevator, Yu removed the bandages from his hands. He was ready for the final battle. As he watched the video of Won Jun's death on the screen, he was filled with rage. Woo Yong gave him 2 choices: take the video and leave, or fight him. Yu picked up the USB without hesitation, but Woo Yong did not let him go easily. He smirked and said, "Who will be next? Is it more entertaining to watch when family gets hurt rather than a friend?" Yu flared with anger. He rushed forward, throwing consecutive punches, but Woo Yong easily evaded them. Yu was even slapped and mocked like a dog. When Woo Yong grew tired of playing, his attacks turned brutal. On the other hand, the battle in the hall grew even more intense. Sang-hyup and Ken were evenly matched, while Sung struggled against Scar's unusual movements until his leg was broken. Meanwhile, Yoonji succeeded against Miss Park, finally avenging her brother. Seeing Sung-yong in danger, she helped him fight Scar. Yu stood back up despite being heavily battered, but he was struck hard again. Woo Yong remained calm, even taking a drink while kicking Yu and breaking the glass. He stood in the ring and repeatedly played the video of Won Jun being stabbed. Yu was completely consumed by rage and summoned all his remaining strength. He charged and struck Wu Yong. With every punch, he retaliated. Finally, Yu gained the upper hand, but he could not bring himself to break Wu Yong's leg. Instead, he punched him in the head and slammed him against the glass of the ring. While Yunji was injured and sustained a broken arm from fighting Scar, Sung Yong suddenly tackled Scar, giving Yunji the chance to finish him. In the other fight, Sang-hyuk used his sheer determination and defeated Ken. Though they were all wounded, they completed their mission. On the other side, Wu Yong got back up and fought Yu once more. This time Yu did not hold back. He broke Wu Yong's arm. Despite being exhausted and wounded, Wu Yong still screamed and tried to push Yu out of the window. Yu clung to the window frame while Wu Yong hung outside, screaming, "Let me go!" Yu wanted justice for his friend, but he did not want to become a killer. So with all his might, he pulled Wu Yong back inside. Wu Yong laughed and said he would regret it, but Yu firmly replied, "I am not like you." As Yu walked away, Wu Yong realized he had completely lost. A few days later, the police arrested Wu Yong for illegal gambling and involvement in several murders. After everything, Yu visited every single person listed in Wan Jun's notebook. He apologized to them on Wan Jun's behalf. Not everyone forgave him, but Yu fulfilled his friend's final wish. On the very last page, he wrote the word forgiven next to his own name. He said to Wan Jun's portrait, "I forgave you a long time ago." Later, he visited Do Hoon in prison. He said he finally knew what he wanted to be, a great boxer just like him. Do Hoon smiled and nodded, saying he still had to work hard to get there. The World Rookie Championship was about to begin. Yu and his friends trained hard for the competition. This time they were no longer fighting to survive, but for their dreams and passion. In the end, Wu Yong was imprisoned, and in an unexpected turn of events, his cellmate was Do Hoon. The two looked at each other and shared a cold smile.